Following, we will have the lecture by Mr. Matsuda Akira. From 2011, he has been Ruby committer. From 2013, he has been active as Ruby on Rails committers and Kaminari active decorators and action arcs. He has made a lot of OSS products. And also from 2008, he has been on the Asakusa.rb hosting this, and also the Ruby's International Conference, Ruby Kaigi's chief organizer, and from 2015, the last Ruby Hero Award. He has been contributing a lot for that. And today, the title is Me and My Ruby Friends. So I can talk now. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Matsuda. Should I look here? And so first, this is the announcement from Ruby Kaigi team. Takeout 2021 was held, and I'm sure you have all participated. And in the closing, I think I touched upon a little bit about next year's topic. Sometimes next year, I think I say that we will do the Ruby conference, but this has been decided. It's September 8th and 10th. This is the date, the birthday of my daughter. Always there are some events in her birthday. And somewhere in Japan, that's what I said, but we have decided where to hold the conference. It has to be a place where the shrimp or the beef is very delicious, which we originally planned in 2021 but has been postponed. I'm sure you know that place. The Ruby is 3.1 or 3.2, but record in a version of 3.3, we are going to do that here. And I wanted to say that please refer to this for the details, but maybe not yet ready here. And the Ruby Kaigi, well, we will continue from next year and so on. And every day, every year, the regulation is that we're going to hold it in different city. And so we should consider always happy to welcome your volunteering for the location. The RubyWorld should always be in Matsue, but Ruby Kaigi can be held any place, anywhere in Japan. Well, these are the conditions for the Ruby Kaigi. It has to be a place where the food is good, the drink is good, no need to have rivers. And also another recruitment is we are also conducting the Ruby Kaigi team for a very small number of people. And so we are wanting to have people joining us. These are the members here. Always a familiar face. And you might say, what's wrong with that? But to have the same people again, I'm not saying bad about the World Conference team, but always I want to continue in a way that we would have different generation with a new face and newcomers. For those who like the Ruby Kaigi, I'll be happy to have. The condition is not that you have to be capable of writing the codes, but those who has a commit doesn't necessarily have to be, or rather, I prefer somebody who is different from that to join us for the Ruby Kaigi members. And the Ruby conference. And today, thank you for you inviting me to this meeting. Not like the Ruby Kaigi, who is not too serious, but I think this is always happy to have the poem on the top page made by Mats, and I'm always feel it very much impressing. That's cool. And in this poem, it says that the Ruby committee, how are we going to head towards the future, and the presentation that will prove that. So it's very encouraging. So I thought that I will also have to. This is the key phrase, the Ruby community. And the Ruby community, you might think what it is. I think it is might have an idea that the Rubies are getting together and doing something together. So the next keyword will be, what is a Rubyist? This is very classic, as Matsumoto-san named this in the 20th century. I'm sure you have heard this a lot of times. I don't know how many times I talked about this in the lectures everywhere. So the Rubies are the people who has a feeling much more than just a customer. I think this is quite famous among you. But this does not end here. For example, they are giving specific example. Who are the Rubies? Which sounds very much 20th century. Rubies. Who is Ruby, or who is saying I like it in the tweet. So these are the kinds of people that we want to call Rubies. So these are the things that the Rubies are doing, and the community activities will be conducted if these people are doing the work as a group. And there are still something adding to that. The person who has a high level technically for Ruby should be called a Ruby hacker. For example, the person who will write the patch. I can only think of one person who will write a patch, and also who will make a script that nobody will understand, which I also can think of somebody who might be saying that. So, and also people who can be also applying for the Trick 2022, that should also be called in this definition. So for these people who are taking activity as a Ruby hacker, and these are the ones who are forwarding the Ruby in the world. And these Ruby hackers' proof of the existence might cause some reaction and make some kind of thing like an ecosystem. So from today, let's say we should write the patches and let's become the Ruby hacker, all of you. So that might sound very good. In many cases, I talk that way, but you might say, I'm tired of hearing that. So I'm talking from a different point of view, not just writing codes, but well, let's think about the community. I want to focus on community, which is quite emotional. And so that leads to my title, Me and My Ruby Friends. The Ruby Friends is the keyword for today. There are Ruby Friends is the word that we hear. Like you don't say Java friends or PHP friends. I don't know, but I think never heard of that. So, but in Ruby, we have this word that we say Ruby friends. So you might question, what about friends? If you're doing the programming, looking at the personal computers every day, this is something Yoshiori-san, maybe that was 2 weeks ago, he mentioned in the tweet. He says that he thought a friend as a person, but that friend was referring to him as an acquaintance. And so that's really what I'm trying to say. There was a person that I thought was a friend, was maybe taking the action, like say, I'm not your friend. And I had that experience quite a lot of times these days. So why did I think that they are my friends? If I think of that, because we speak the same language. In my case, very simply, we are doing the same Ruby, and by doing that, I tend to think that you're already my friend. But it seems that that's not true for everybody, and it seems that there are differences here. And so maybe the only person who's thinking that way, but not the same for everyone. Then, what's the difference between the acquaintance and a friend? As a Rubyist, if you are sharing the same experience as a Rubyist in the community activity, maybe the distance will become closer, and probably that will lead to jumping some kind of border and to become friends. Well, I was thinking about what is a friendship, but there is no clear definition or no clear line to divide that. I was thinking about that, so I was given this opportunity, so I will look back on my community activity as a Rubyist and try to consider to think of the friends and also try to look back why and when we became friends. So roughly, maybe I can say that there are about 100 of those who I can call their Ruby friends. So going back, maybe about 20 years ago, in the early 2000s, when I first discovered Ruby, I bought a book about Ruby, and I was studying alone, so I did not have any Ruby friends those days. I was very alone as a programmer, and the Ruby's hot links answered in interviews. There is a magazine interview. I read this article and I thought they looked very cool. And there was some cases that I was responding to that in those interviews. Like saying that I have a rule when I go to eat out, not to go to the same place more than twice, or not to go to the chain stores. And so there are more than 2,000, and I'm taking the record at the apps in the Ruby, and I'm always asked about the current status about that. And those days, the Rails came out, and so Tokyo Rails study meeting. Maybe it doesn't exist anymore, but those days this was having Takeuchi-san or Mon-san there. It was big members there. So the IT study meeting was in fashion those days, and I thought everybody likes to study. I don't like to study. Well, I rather like to enjoy the party that was after the study meeting, and that was the main part rather than the study meeting, and that was also important for me. So I was very much being influenced by this Rails study meeting, and so it's more than 15 years for those people I met there. I have a friendship still going on, and also I'm making these activities on Ruby on Rails than from those experiences. And just a little bit while later, in 2008, based on the Rails study group Tokyo, a next group was made. I made Asakusa.rb. So the dates are also clear because you might find it in the history textbook. The third day of the Ruby Kaigi staff lives in Hokkaido and was coming to this Tokyo and was staying at the net cafe because did not have reserved hotels. And let's have lunch together with Darashi-san, then Koichi-san, and Kakutani-san, and myself. There were only 3 people gathering. So, but these are people who are in a high position from me. And so I was very lucky to have the lunch together in the same table with these people. And Kakutani-san made the proposal of having regional Ruby kaigi, not only central areas, but I think there should be the lobbyists in each local areas, and I think we should promote the activities there. So that was the proposal given by Kakutani-san. And I said, well, I want to do something too. Then he said, why don't we make that kind of thing, that Asakusa area? So that's why we made the Asakusa.rb. But both of us were very, they were very busy. So I had to act as a leader. There were no RBs those days. And also, there was Takai-san who made the Akasaka.rb. So ours once was the second .rb.
3 weeks later, we had a meeting, and the regional Oro-based community was the name at the time. Back then, these are things I did. For instance, I wanted to have somebody to participation particularly, and that was a purpose, and ask those persons to come over. And I think that was a good thing to have done. For instance, Twitters and Compass, and communicate with them. And many people create a community and just waiting. But we have to prepare something. We have to prepare some stage for other people to come. We need to produce. And it was the meeting, the party for 2 to 3 hours, and the patch was sent to Rails, and immediately it was taken. That was the result of the first meeting. The patch was taken. In addition, at the first meeting, it was a local meetup, and they participated from nearby and around Asakusa. Therefore, we opened the Google Map and asked each other, where do you live? Where do you live? And we discussed various things. And locally, and we put the pin on the Google Map, indicating where they are from. Now, yesterday I counted 480, 490 people are the members, and where if there's a pin on the Google Map, the person is a member. Now, we are continuously working, but we are not working very hard. We are not working very hard. That's why we are continuing on Ruby Tuesday. There's no presentations. I don't do anything, and the people around me are working, supporting me. So Ruby Tuesday is like a Seattle RB. This is the same as that convention, and in any event, very impressive. So Asakusa.rb is continuing because there are core members who are supporting this. These are the core members of the our group, Asakusa.rb. There is no presentations. We get together and we chat. That's all. Anything else? Nothing else than that. But these are the people who are interesting. Getting together of these interesting people became interesting and is interesting. And the 500 members can be considered as a friend. I believe that they are my friend. There is no conflict of interest, no shared interest. We just get together. And with this style, we are continuing, and there are some peculiar problem, like in the case of the Ruby Kaigi, rather difficult new people to come in. The atmosphere is a high context, and new people feel some resistance to come in. We have a friendship, but it's a kind of internal the group that external people cannot get in. But we want to get together, the same member, but we don't want to be exclusive. We need to have the balance between these good members, and also we'd like to welcome new energetic members. So please participate. Asakusa.rb started in 2008 when various things changed. The GitHub service started 2008, and the social coding also started in this year. And the social coding, for me, it is very interesting, and I dived into that, and the real 18, the project, and the new the project was started. And now, meanwhile, the Ruby's comes to the use Rails. As I'm a Japanese, people think that I was good at Ruby on Rails because I was Japanese, and I was invited to Rails Core Chat, and I was treated preferentially, and I was so glad that I was treated that way, and I was happy that I was a Japanese. Now, the first RubyWorld conference was an excellent event. There's an archive. Probably you can view it in the archive. I'm sorry that I forgot to bring the video, but Ruby conference in 2009, maybe around 2009 if I'm not mistaken, and I participated for the first time. And then Rails conference, I started to participate 2 years later in 2011, particularly Rails Conf. Matsuda-san may not know this, but there's a Rails committee. Just one day before that, there is the committee's meeting, committee's dinner meeting. And for me, this is a quite delicious event. It's an annual meeting, the very precious opportunity to meet all of them once a year. I am always looking forward to it. And Ruby conference and the Rails conference, if you spend your own money from your pocket, it is very, very expensive. I don't take hotel. I just go there, even without purchasing the ticket. And so I survive. I try to survive. I went to San Francisco, and Sarah May. I consulted with a member, and I was told to use this kind of application to find a good place to sleep in order to spend as less money as possible. As there are so many people, so the United States, there are many beds available. For instance, I stayed with them. These are the people that helped me a lot in the United States, particularly the duck. You like him, no? And in my house, there was the duck's room for 7 months. So while he lived in my house, he found a girlfriend, he got married, and he left me. Without this room, Zach's room in my house, his life would have been different. Now, but I learned after attending the U.S. conference, and then There are many people that I don't know, but I know. At the same time, I'm a nerd, so I read many people's patches, so I know the face and the names and the characters beforehand, so I can interact with them with the prior knowledge. And around the community of the Rails, there are people who have read my patches, so they know me. And activities are known, and I am recognized as the person who wrote that particular patch. And if you write a lot of patch, you would get recognized. And I wrote one representative, the product, and I'm recognized more with product name. So going back to the first comment, it's better to write patches, and you have to write patches. As a result, if you write the patch, you can write it, and after that you get more friends, and definitely you have more friends. Now I have a monthly the association meeting of the Rails patches. ESM provide this event. If you are extremely interested in Rails, this is a good opportunity to talk about patches once a month. These are the members, the regulars, and these are the Rails committers. If you have any questions, you can come to this meeting. Yahonda-san, you may know him, but actually you may not know him. He's a superior of the university, and he started Ruby because I was doing Ruby, and he called me Matsuda-kun for the past 20 years, so he's a special. And they are very polite, so usually they do not call me Matsuda-kun, but Sasada-kun and Sasada-san, Urabe-kun, therefore there is kind of a hierarchy among people, and there is the senior-junior relationship. If I call Matsumoto-san Matsu-kun, I would become a superior, and Yasuoka-san is a superior to me. As a result, Yasuoka-san will be at the top of a hierarchy. And so for him, I would like to continue to work. Actually, this is a joke. And going back to the serious discussion, as I mentioned earlier, the community and the conference, before coming to attend, please study before coming to the community, those who write codes. There are so many people, and there are so many opportunities to get to know them. And all of them are available free of charge, and you can study it free of charge. It's much enjoyable. And also with respect to the Ruby conference, actually you come to Ruby conference spending a lot of money, therefore it's better to spend one more night. In my personal experiences, the one day after and the 2 days after the end of the conference, something nice would happen. How many minutes do I have? So anyway, I will continue. I went to New Orleans in 2010, and after the conference is over, I was wandering around in New Orleans, and we started from the bar and the hotel, and we got together, and I got to know a very interesting group of people. And instead of Ruby on Rails, we started Ruby on Ails, and that is Ruby on beer. They are so crazy. So it's a kind of event very enjoyable. And I'm one of the founding members of Ruby on Ails, and I was invited as a speaker twice. At the time on Oregon, the Jonan, that is the beginner of Ruby at the time, and I saw him and his wife. And people were drunk, and the live coding was very exciting. And people are drunk, and there is no recording left. People were just drinking beer, and now this is a codebug monolith. It became popular, and amongst the developers overseas, they got to know the cookpad, and the presence became elevated. In 2011, probably after the end of the Ruby conference, Kakutani-san left the passport in the hotel room, and then I became a Ruby committer accidentally. And I talked with Jim Rails at the time. 1 year later, 2012, the phrase of the Ruby Friends was born. And in the Ruby conference, there are the big and giant, the foreigners. They would take me around and go to visit some place and play with them. There are many events like this, and you can enjoy time. So after the conference, you can set a schedule open to enjoy yourself. And probably you don't have to pay any more to attend a conference sooner or later. Aside from the Ruby conference and the Rails conference, I do not spend my own money. And still, I attend many different conferences. There are many different types. Roughly speaking, I'd like to introduce Modern Web Taiwan. This is the IT minister and also the gods or the guru of languages and such a great people, and also the conference in India, the conference in Brazil, the one in Russia. I went there with Matsumoto-san, and the conference in Indonesia. I go various places and I have different experiences. So the conference is so interesting, and I wanted to produce one myself, Ruby Kaigi. It started in 2013, and we tried, and then it was over, but we repeated once again in 2015. And it became too difficult, and we stopped once again, and I took over. I asked to take over, and I decided to do this and implemented 8 months and 9 months later. It's broken. This is about sushi. In 2015, I took over this conference, and then I changed the atmosphere or the taste. The biggest thing is this. It used to be a community event, but I changed to the event for Ruby hackers, and that is a unique the event in the world. At the end, for instance, I'm not saying that you use somebody other's equipment, but probably these people can do this at other place. This is a policy to have the stronger character of the event. And 2016, we got away from Tokyo and started a national tour. And finally, we had the one in Fukuoka 2019. I wanted to do it in the real world, but we do not know what will happen next year. But we secured a place to do Ruby Kaigi. When you organize a Ruby Kaigi, there are not so many good things, but probably you can go to the place before the Rubyist and you can enjoy the place, and you can eat at a local restaurant. Of course, you have to pay, but you can enjoy the same experience 1 year before the Rubyist. And there's another conference, Edo Ruby Conference, and many people have participated in the, and it was held in Nagoya. We had another one last month. JKS and came to attend this. There is no recording. This is a one-time event, so it's a kind of a pity, but for that it is very interesting.
So roughly looking back on what we did before, I think I was always lucky up to here. I feel that I'm very happy to have good friends and good opportunities. So I think I'm enjoying a very good occasion. And I feel that the thoughts that I was given from other people, I want to return this to other people as well. That's why not using Ruby as a user, but I want to return to in a significant way. For example, writing a patch or to provide a community areas or to host the community meetings. But everything I do always comes back to me as a advantage, and so these merits are increasing. So just like you have money, so you buy the real estate and then you get the rent income, just like that. The more OSS activities you have, more friends, and the community activity itself, I can enjoy fun. And also talking like this, then I'm invited to Shimane Prefecture where I can enjoy eating the crops, and I cannot think of what else I can do. But anyway, I'm having fun, so maybe that's enough for me. I'm sorry, I'm exceeding my time. So Matsumoto-san was saying what we can do for the future, and in 2010 or something, he said that I would continue using Ruby for another 50 years, and myself also. I would like to declare that for my life long, I would like to do something for Ruby. So I doesn't mean that I'm not going to do anything besides Ruby. Of course, I'm also doing other things, and that means that I will do other things, but I will never forget about Ruby. Therefore, I now maybe have 100 friends thanks to Ruby. Going back to the original question, I found that there are 500 pins of Asakusa Ruby. And for those who are in the Ruby Kaigi, they're already my friends. So I counted there are 5,725 of them. And the product that I made on the GitHub, for those who put the stars on the products that I have made, probably he had the sympathy with the code that I have made full of my thoughts. So I think that person is already a friend. Then if I roughly count, I think Ruby can make this count with just one click. And I counted the numbers of stars, and there were 17,000. So If I add all of them, I think I have 23,000 Ruby friends. That is more than 100. So that's very happy for me. So Queen Crimson is now in Japan, and he said music is our friend. That's the name of their tour. And so that was the final play, the show last week, Wednesday. And I think this, to close the activity with this word, is very serious. I could only go on the last day and the first day. When Robert Fripp says music, for us, that's a Ruby. So I try to think, is Ruby our friend? Because we're having fun with the Ruby, and also friends are introduced, they are friends. So the Ruby friends definition is everybody can become friends of Ruby, then Ruby will make you a friend. So probably that's what the Ruby friends are. And so now I understand, agree what Matsumoto-san was trying to say. And so to have like Dave or Mats want to talk about love when they say about the feeling that is more than the customers. And that makes me feel shy. So I think friendship will be better. And that's why the Ruby Friends circle will be expanded. And that's how I came to interpret this. So putting together as a closing, now I have 1,000 Ruby friends with Ruby, and it's fun playing with Ruby. So Ruby is our friend. That's the conclusion for me today. Thank you for attention.